Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you, wherever you are in the world. I am Tigress Osborn. I'm the executive director of NAAFA, the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. And welcome to the latest episode of the NAAFA Webinar Series. Today, we are joined by travel journalist and TV star Jeff Jenkins, who I'm going to introduce you to in just one moment. Hi, Jeff. Before I get into it with Jeff, before we get into it with Jeff, I want to welcome you all. For those of you who are new to NAAFA, the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance is the world's oldest documented fat rights organization working to make the world a better place for fat people, enthusiastically using the F word so that we can show that it's just another descriptor and does not have to be used as an insult or a traumatic word. And we're just going to try to make the world better for fat people. We do that through education, advocacy, and support. Our mission is to change perceptions of fat and to eliminate size discrimination. We do some of that size discrimination work through the Campaign for Size Freedom, which you can learn more about on our website. That campaign helps to support local activists who are working on laws where they live to add height and weight to protected classes under civil rights law or other anti-discrimination law. So if that is something you support, please do visit the Campaign for Size Freedom section of our website, NAAFA.org, and go ahead and click that Size Freedom button and sign our petition and do all of those things. At that same website, you can also see other information about the events and programming we offer, and you can make contributions to NAAFA. We are able to do these kinds of events free for our community because of the support of generous donors. And when I say generous, I mean whatever you have to give that feels generous to you, it works for us. So if you're able to support financially, please do stop by the giving section of our website and make a contribution today so we can keep doing this kind of thing and all the other important work that we have been doing for going on 55 years now. We really appreciate your support. We are joined today by our friends from Pro Bono ASL. Today's interpreters are David and Selena. And please do learn more about Pro Bono ASL and their important work by visiting their website, which is probonoasl.com. Now, let's meet Jeff. Jeff Jenkins is an award-winning travel and food blogger, speaker, podcast host, and influencer based out of Austin, Texas. Jeff most recently is proud to add host and travel documentarian to his list of adventures as he stars in Never Say Never with Jeff Jenkins, backed by National Geographic. That show explores diverse cultures, locations, overcoming fears. We're going to talk to Jeff about the show and other important stuff Jeff is out there in the world doing. Jeff Jenkins, welcome to the NAAFA Webinar Series.
Hey, everybody. And now we can also say award-winning show because we just got our first award this week, and I'm excited about it.
Tell us about all the awards. You were already able to say award-winning about yourself. Now you're able to say it about the show. What are some of the accolades you've been piling up out here?
Oh, now I got to think about it.
Well, where can we see them?
I've gotten Changemaker Awards. I've gotten like 40 under 40, like 3 times for different cities and organizations. Yeah, I'm definitely proud of that one. The new one I can't tell you about yet because it hasn't like been officially launched.
Okay.
But we can tell you that it is a award, and I'm excited about it. But yeah, I've won Travel's Best by Lonely Planet. It was the only year they gave it to humans, so that was really cool to be a part of that. So it's been really cool.
That is really amazing. So I first met you when we were both asked to be on a public radio show that was about being plus size and traveling.
Yes.
And back then you were doing your own blog, Chubby Diaries. So
Uh-huh.
tell us the origin story of like how you became a travel blogger. Where did it start for you? How did you make it? How did you go? And then how did you go from being that blogger to being the star of a National Geographic show?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here with y'all right now. Please, if you hear my nose all stuffy, it's because these allergies are kicking my butt right now. So I'm like stuffed up, but it is what it is. I used to be a high school choir teacher. I did that for 9 years. And some of y'all have probably heard this story before, but I was a high school choir teacher for 9 years. I left teaching because my stepfather passed. And he was like 54. And I was like, yo, that's close. Like I'm catching like that's like 20 years from now. And I was like, okay, I need to do something else. I definitely don't think I want to do teaching for the rest of my life. I got into entrepreneurship, and from there, it was uh, I was trying to figure things out still, and I went on this mission trip to go build gardens in Rwanda. And while we were there, my friends and I came back and started a water well project for that same community in Rwanda. And so the fact that none of us were engineers or knew how water came out of the ground, like I was like, oh yeah, we can do this. Like this is incredible. Like I was like, I can do whatever now, you know? And so uh to be able to take that idea and turn it into something, it really like encouraged me or motivated me to ask myself the question if like money wasn't an option, if whatever I was to dream up was to actually happen for me, like what would I do? And I remember asking myself that question, and we were in like literally middle of nowhere, Rwanda. So there's like no cell phone signal, no internet, nothing. So you're just like left to you and nature and the water wells that we were building. And it was while I was there that I kept just like trying to figure out, like, oh, I could go back to med school. Nah, I don't want to do that. I could become a lawyer. I could do that. Like, so I just kept like really like hashing this thing out. And so it took me 3 days to come to the conclusion that I wanted to travel the world, help people, and get paid to do it. And so that's what actually took me on my journey to becoming a content creator and a blogger because I didn't know what to do to actually like get paid to travel. So I
Mhm.
looked into it, I figured it out. I was like, oh, so I could do blogging, I could do like content creation. I didn't know like the influencer marketing was like growing at that time as well. So
So
I
at first, were you
go
still
ahead.
teaching and doing that on the like, that was the travel blogging was your side hustle, or did you just jump? Did you just, like, leave
I
teaching?
jumped. I jumped. Yeah. So I stopped teaching in 2017. The next year, like I started or that same year, I started entrepreneurship. And then I went on that mission trip that same year. In 2018 is when we started Chubby Diaries. And I started Chubby Diaries not out of me thinking about being plus size and stuff like that or fat. Like I didn't think of it that way. Cause I thought I was just gonna just be Jeff and just go do it, right? Uh, but it was like everybody kept being like, "You need a niche. You need a niche." And so I was like, "I don't even know how to find a niche." I went to my cousin, who's a PR rep, and she gave me this form to fill out. And when I filled out the form, is I filled it out and I was like, I have nothing. And she was like, why don't you just talk about being fat and black? And I said, oh my God, why don't I talk about just being fat and black? Like, it's so easy to talk about my experience from a plus size or a fat person to just like traveling around the world. And my wife, she's not plus size. And she was traveling with me and this is like when we were like newly married. She was traveling with me, and I was like, she said something happened. I don't know, we were on a plane or something. And I said, hey, excuse me, quick question for you. I was like, do you ever worry about like size restrictions or like weight limits? And she was like, no. And I was like, what world do you live in? You know, like I've always thought this. Like ever since I was a little kid, 10 years old, going to a water park, Wet and Wild in Orlando, Florida, that was the moment I learned about weight limits and like I
Mhm.
having a weight limit. And so that was always a thing. So the fact that I was like, yo, I'm on to something. Cause I was like, I don't know anybody in this space that's coming from my perspective as a plus size black man traveling around the world. And then I realized that in the content social media space, there was nobody actually making it their mission, like their whole dedicated thing was just plus size travel, like men and women, like plus size travel. It was like, oh, I'm a fashion person and I happen to travel and I'm
Mhm.
plus size. So it wasn't like somebody dedicated to the plight of plus size travel. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to like change that narrative. I wanted to bring more light to it. And that's how I started with like Chubby Diaries back in 2018.
We've had a couple other folks on the webinar over the years, and this even recently talk a little bit about travel. Jalen Cheney and
Yeah.
Unique Gibson joined us for a webinar a few months ago to talk specifically about being supersized
Mhm.
travelers. But what I have observed the same thing that you did around a lot of folks who are doing travel things are very focused on fat women.
Yep.
Or size women, or are doing things only up to sort of a certain area of plus size. Like they're
Yes.
still, they're giving tips, but the tips don't go all the way up to where some of the rest of us need them to go.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that. In your early days, was your trip to Rwanda your first international trip?
No, it wasn't. I
So
have
what
been
kind of traveling
traveling
were you doing before
already. I've been
that?
traveling, like, when I was in college. I didn't get on my first plane ride until I was 20, but, and I was to Japan.
Mhm,
Um, but I think I had went to, like, 20 plus countries at that point.
mhm. And how many now?
45. So,
And
yeah,
how many
like
in the US? Have you
Huh?
been to all 50 states? How many
We
in the
are
US have
2
you?
states away. 2 states away, Arizona and Alaska.
Oh,
Well,
come on, Jeff. I'm in Arizona. Come
I gotta
on.
come see you then. I
I
gotta
will
come
meet
see
you
you.
at the Grand Canyon. I'm not going down it, but I'll wait for you at the
Oh,
top.
yeah, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, come through, Jeff. Let's check that one off.
Okay.
I'm in Houston today, but I live in the Phoenix area. So you had been traveling, you had already observed some things about what it was like to be a larger bodied person traveling.
Yeah.
What were some of your early lessons about things that you could do to make it easier for yourself, or things that you never would have thought of until you encountered them?
To me, it's the researching part. Like I had to be well aware of. Well, okay, no, I like the question. I was like, "Ooh, wait, you said the question a different way." I like that. So the things that I realized, or the things that I encountered, was when I first got to like Japan or I got to Europe, and like seats, doorways, hotel rooms. Uh, like in Japan, they used to have a lot of like the plastic chairs and stuff like that. I'm not sitting on a plastic chair, or just the looks that I got. I knew they were going to look at me because I was black, but then also I could tell that they were probably, because I had some friends with me that were black as well, and they were staring at me more than they were staring at them. And so
Mhm,
it was one of those things of like, oh, I don't know if they ever actually see a lot of plus size people traveling and stuff. So it was that. Like, I can't go into a store like in Japan or in Europe and just go buy like an outfit or something like that. And I was even smaller then. So the fact that I couldn't get like a 2X or a 3X at the time, like I was like, hey, what's going on? And so those are like the challenges that I faced. But then what made me realize, like, the things that I started realizing, like, okay, there's these things that I can't do. Like, there was like rides or like uh excursions and stuff that I couldn't do because of the size restrictions or the weight limits. I would go to an amusement park and I couldn't get on a ride. So what I've learned to do is do my research. Like, research is like my top tip, like I always give. Is me doing that research is where I find out what I can and can't do before I get there. For an
mhm,
example, like when I went to uh I wanted to go, bucket list was to go swim with the great whites in South Africa. I was like, y'all, I'm doing this. Like, we got to make this happen. I was like, you know what? I was like, let me look at their website. Let me look ahead. It's mandatory. I see on the website, it's mandatory that you have on a wetsuit. And if you got in that water, you will know really quickly, like, I should have been in a wetsuit because you need it. It's that freezing. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if they're going to have a wetsuit my size. And so what I ended up doing was, and this is the first time I've even ever did any kind of research on wetsuits. I was like, I'm gonna go on Amazon and see if they got extended sizes for wetsuits. And I'm gonna get one of those and take it to South Africa with me because I don't know if they're gonna have my size. Fast forward, they didn't have my size. And that was the first time I ever seen any first fat person in a wetsuit. My
mm.
first time. I mean, it could be other ones, but uh, for me, that was the first time I've ever seen any fat person in a wetsuit. And I was actually shivering and like nervous because I was like, I don't know if this is gonna fit me or not. And I remember even having to put it on and how tight it was, but it fit. And then it was like, man, what if I did not do my research? I would have been in this situation. So I
Yeah.
always tell people to do that research.
Well, and I'll just say here too, like you at this stage of career, you probably have other people helping you do the research and helping you, get the resources that you need. But allies who are watching, people who are not fat who are watching, you could do some of this research for us when we're going places with you, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to leave all the work to us to figure out how we can be somewhere with you. So what was that like for you in your early travel days or even now to be with people who might not get the things that you need?
Yeah.
Because it's not their lived experience in the bodies that they have, but you're traveling together with them. What is
You
that like?
know, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, like it's interesting because when I was traveling before, I would only go with like a certain group of people. And I wouldn't, in some ways, I almost wouldn't even go to a place. If I went to the place, I'll just let them go by themselves. Like if they were doing something that I knew I couldn't do because of the size or weight, like I almost didn't even, like I looked ahead of time to be like, oh, I can't make it to that. Like I won't be there kind of thing and blah, blah, blah. Please forgive me, guys. And so even when I got older and I started traveling, or when I started Chubby Diaries, one of the coolest things that happened was before Chubby Diaries, nobody was thinking about it. You know, nobody was thinking about it. Anybody person I ever traveled with was ever thinking about it. But it wasn't until I started Chubby Diaries. The moment I started Chubby Diaries and people started understanding what I was talking about was the moment people actually started like becoming allies. And they started asking me questions and doing things to serve me that I didn't even think to even think about for service. Like one of my first campaigns I ever did that I got paid for, it was one of my first big ones. Like they put me in first class. And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I've never flown in first class." And she was like, "Oh, I thought those seats would be more comfortable for you." And I was like, "Yes." Like, I didn't even think, and they were. Oh my gosh. I was like, "Oh my God." Like, I can't go back. Like, I love first class just for that reason. But even on my websites, or not even on my website, on my like Instagram and stuff, you can see that there's a lot of people who aren't fat that follow me.
Mhm.
And I've had multiple testimonies from people saying that, like, hey, I follow you because one of my friends, family members, spouse is fat. And I remember like one girl I met, we met on the plane. She had been trying to get her best friend to go on a trip with her for years, literally years. Her friend could not tell her why she didn't want to go on this trip. When she saw my page, she went and asked her friend, "Is this the reason why you haven't been going on these trips?" And
Mm,
she said, "Yes." And for the past 4 years, these jokers been going on trips. So
mhm.
like that to me is like incredible because it's just that lack of representation. And so I try to be that, like I tell people all the time that like representation matters. When people see themselves represented, they'll get out there and go do it themselves. Like, or be like, you know what, I can go do that. Like one of my friends, Tiffany Hurd, she was on a camel. And I was like, oh, I didn't ever think I could get on a camel. And she was like, Jeff, the camel can hold like 1,000 pounds on its back. And I said, well, shoot, I ain't 1,000 pounds. I can get on this camel. So it's beautiful to see other people doing things and make you
Mhm.
get inspiration and motivation to be able to go do it yourself.
And have you heard from I want to just go back a little bit to the fact
Yep.
that you are still one of the most prominent guys doing fat travel stuff. There are some really great networks. With the show we met on was we were with Annette Richmond from Fat Girls
That girl
Traveling.
travel. Yep.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of support from Fat Girls Travel too. And they sponsored the award that I won at the Full Figure Industry Awards last year. And so I know that there are these amazing networks, and I'm probably forgetting some other folks, but like of women traveling. But there's still not a lot of guys doing it the way at the level that you're doing it. What do
Yeah.
you hear from men and masculine folks about what it means to them, particularly to see a man doing it?
Oh, they quiet about it. They quiet about it. They ain't even got to be plus size. Like their men are quiet, and even with the TV show, this is where I experience it the most. Is like they'll almost. not tell you how it impacted you, like how you impacted them, but then like you have to almost like ask them like, well, what did you actually think about it? Or like they'll tell you about somebody else. They'll defer and be like, oh man, my wife loves your content. And I was like, oh, you know who I am? You know my content? And I was like, well, what about you? And then they'll be like, oh man, I loved it. Like, well, you did this and you do this. I was like, why did you not come out and just say that from the beginning? So I
Mhm.
feel like the one thing that I have encountered is that like men, excuse me, I don't feel like there's enough men that do talk about their size and their weight to where they feel comfortable enough to actually share it. And I think that's across the board, but especially in that plus size community side, I do have a lot of dudes that have DM me in the past. And they were just like, one guy, I loved how he said, when I did the show and I took my shirt off in the show for the sumo wrestling, a guy reached out to my best friend who he works with and said, hey, man, it's been 13 years since I've taken off my shirt in public. And he was
Mm.
like, it wasn't until I watched Jeff in the show, Jeff's show, that I was like, I didn't care about the people that was there. I didn't care about my 10-year-old son who I thought was really going to judge me. And he's like, I took it off and nobody said anything. He was like, I rarely even got looks. And so I do get some of that, but I really do feel like a lot of times men don't like to express themselves, or a lot of times they don't like to think that they're actually plus size or fat.
Well, let's talk about taking your shirt off because you've done that in another really prominent place recently.
Yes.
Um, Tell the people about your appearance in Men's Health magazine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was so happy about that article. So I was in a article with Men's Health. The photo shoot was me being shirtless, which I was like, oh, this is happening. Like people want more of this shirtless Jeff. I got you. But it was about beyond obesity, and it was featuring a few men uh and like how we're not even just defying the odds, but more so just not allowing the what we've hear throughout the years to stop us from doing the things that we're doing. And so it was such a beautiful piece. I thought it was great. Gave a lot of study and statistics. Chloe has me over here laughing right now. I'm sorry. Uh,
Yeah, close in the chat talking about more shirtless Jeff. Heck yeah.
I love it. But yeah, so it was really cool. And I'm gonna be honest, like that was the first time doing a photo shoot like that. And I did it for the show. And just to back up, just to give y'all even that like context around the show, like when I do the show, it's like, and I know we'll talk more about it. Um, with the show, I went to Japan, and each episode I do a challenge at the end. And that challenge was, or my challenge was to go fight a sumo wrestler, a former world champion. And but you what I felt like the second challenge was me actually taking my shirt off in public. So I had to take my shirt off in front of the people that was there. And then I had to think about the potential of a million people watching this show and seeing me with my shirt off. And I'm telling you, I was real about this. Like I fought with my producers left and right because never have I done this and never have I exposed myself in a way like this. But I watched. Not only did I watch both of the or the episode twice with like different audiences, like premiere parties I had, like people cheered at that part, which blew my mind. I was confused. I was like, wait, what? Like they built it up to where it was like, is he gonna take his shirt off? Is he not? And like everybody was like, oh my God. Like, and then I even hear from the show that people say that that's like one of the most inspiring parts of the show. So for me to take my shirt off, for me to expose myself in that way, and to not care, is what I had to start telling myself, like, man, hey, I'm not gonna care anymore. I can just go
Well,
for it.
one of the things I really love about the show, and let's get into how you got to being on this show. One of the things I love about the show is that it does show you in your vulnerabilities. Because I think that sometimes we think that the only way to show body positivity, the only way to show something fat positive is to act like there are never any challenges. right? To like, it's all smooth and easy all the time. I'm confident every day. I feel good every day. Every interaction I have with other people is perfect. And that's not the reality of living in a larger body, right? We have a whole spectrum of ways we feel about our bodies, things we encounter in our bodies. And we get to see a lot of that spectrum with you when you do have doubts. And when those doubts are related to your, to what you look like or to what your weight is or whatever. And then we still get to see you do amazing stuff, right? So we get to see the vulnerability and we get to see what you work through to overcome it. So I think you have said before that that is one of your goals for the show, right? Is to be that role model for other people, that you can do things you're not expecting.
Yeah.
So how did you get to this show? And what role did you have in choosing the name Never Say Never for the show?
Well, great question. So it was me doing my social media stuff, me doing my journalism work, being recognized within the travel space. Um, if somebody from Nat Geo from the production company reached out and was like, "Hey, we want to make a show doing what you're doing," and this is me 3 years into asking myself the question like, what do I really want to do in life? And I was like, travel the world, help people, and get paid. So I was like, oh man, we're really moving now. Uh, so yeah, I got this show, and that process just to even get the show was just like out of this world. Literally, it was a lot. We did like 2 pilot episodes, went to Iceland and Hawaii. I swam with sharks there, like with no cage. That won't ever see the light of day, but that one. But it was still fantastic. I loved it. And then it was just so much like the actual shooting part is way more rigorous. Like the show is shooting the show. It was way more rigorous than what you saw even on TV. Like there was so much like hiking and walking and climbing and doing these different things just to get to the destination that we wanted to shoot from. And then it was long hours. So it was a lot. So it was a lot on my body. And I always tell people that the biggest thing that I got from that show is I realized how resilient I am and how resilient my body is. Because there's like for most people that would be very hard to do.
Mhm.
And I definitely trained as much as I could to get ready for it. And to answer the second part of your question, you said for never say never. I'm gonna be
Mhm.
honest. I didn't want that name. Like we were going through the list of stuff. Like we presented 100 names, and which I was fine with. When so what they did was they do this for a lot of shows where they test the names of shows, and out of 100, Never Say Never shot up to the top, and there wasn't a close second. So,
Mm.
since there wasn't a close second, I was like, you know what? The people have spoken. This is what the name's gonna be. So I'm super chill about it.
Can
I
you tell
know
us
there was
what your favorite was from the list of the 100? Do you remember
uh,
what your favorite was?
Big World with Jeff Jenkins.
Mhm.
I don't know. I love that one. It was called Big World. I loved it. So, or it was Jeff Jenkins' Big World.
When you talk about your work at Chubby Diaries and when you talk about the show, you say we. Who is on your team that you want to give a shout out to, or you want people to know, like who's backing you up doing this traveling all over the world?
So the main person, there's I mean, for the most part, my lifeline in a sense is Tani Garcia, Grant. She's like my assistant, and also my wife as well. I wouldn't be able to even articulate what I wanted to articulate, even within the diversity space, and being able to say, be able to make not even palatable, but be able to communicate the advocacy or communicate why companies and tourism boards need to invest in plus size travel. But yeah, Tani Garcia is my assistant, and she's the main person that has answered like every email, signed me up for meetings. She does all of that, and so she's been with me the longest now. She's been with me almost 5 years, and so
Mhm.
and then we were coworkers. We used to be former coworkers. When I was a teacher, she was a teacher at the same school, and she reached out. I was like, "Hey, you need some couple of hours I can pick up or something?" I was like, "Yes." And
Yes,
now I just hired a full time camera guy that I'm super excited about. His name is Elijah. So y'all are going to see a lot more content from me now.
we love it. And what's your wife's name?
Denisha, she goes
Hi,
by.
Denisha. So thank you to your whole team for backing you up in all the things.
Oh, and my managers as well. I'm so sorry. Mr. Rashawn and Kamala. They definitely did their thing.
The reason I asked about the other folks is because you do have support in doing the traveling that you're doing, not just the business side of it, but also all of the, the logistics of the travel now.
Mhm.
Um, when you were starting out and you were just like a regular travel, you were not an entrepreneur, you were not a travel journalist. Um, you mentioned doing a lot of that research yourself. What is it like now on the show to have a whole production team that helps you get to these travel adventures?
Say that one more question, one more time. I'm so sorry.
What is it like now to have the whole force of National Geographic behind you as a production team to get you on these adventures and to help capture them to share them with the rest of the
It's
world?
fantastic. Like, for my show, we had 30 people on set every day. So that was a lot of people. So we're talking multiple producers, like just throughout the whole thing. It's a whole nother beast. Like when you're a content creator, you're doing every job. You're the producer, you're the camera guy, you're the sound guy, you're the light guy. Like you're doing it all, for the most part. And to have everybody having their own individual jobs, I thought that was like fantastic. When I was on shoot, they there's this thing about like just being camera ready. That's all they care about me as talent. Jeff, we just need you to be ready when we say action or when we say please. Uh, and so that meant don't do anything else, don't touch nothing. And I'm a person who loves to serve. I love to be that person that like gives and things and serves people. And so that was really tough for me. I couldn't even tie my own shoes on set. And I fought them that first episode. I was like, nope, 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 I got it. I can do it. And they was like, sir, no, let us do it. And like they was like, we don't even want you bending down. Like, we got it. And so it was really cool to experience just being on sets like that and having that many people that's like catering to you in that way.
Well, and that kind of goes to one of the questions that's in the chat about whether or not you had time for rest during these adventures. Like, what does that look like for you? Because you globe-trotting all over the place. And also, do you get to rest during these adventures, during these productions, between these productions? Like, how do you work rest into your life?
Or no, okay, so I would say that I was in go time when I'm on the show, like when we're shooting the show, is literally like I'm focused. I don't care about anything else. That's what we're doing. We're shooting the show, trying to make the best quality product we can. I tried to get rest, but you rarely got rest. Like it's the way of the beast. Like it is what it is. Like you're going 12-hour days. You do get a day off, and I did try to take them. I got massages all the time because I needed it. But at home, I get rest at least once a day or once a week. Mondays are my like days off, Sabbath. So like I try to do nothing. Like I don't want to answer an email. I don't want to look at an email. I don't want to communicate with anybody. And so I do try to find rest, but I rarely rest. I rarely rest. Not yet. I can't rest yet. I got so much work to do.
I feel that. I feel that a lot as an advocate. And there's always more things to do for fat community, but
Yeah.
there's always more things to do in life. I want to talk about one other thing that you've done recently, and then we'll also take some more audience questions. If you're here with us live, you
Perfect.
gearing up your questions in the chat. Um, so we talked about you taking your clothes off. Now, you've done some interesting clothes on projects lately related to fashion. What is
Yeah.
our travel friend doing in the fashion world?
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm loving this life because, and I'll say this to anybody, like but when you following your dreams and the things that you feel like God has called you to and stuff like that, like man, you get all these like little like sweet nuggets of like coolness that I wasn't even expecting. Like I to be asked to be a part of a fashion show at Fashion Week in New York City. I was like floored. I got to be a part of the bigger picture. They're the two guys is Cam and Brandon. They're both plus size, big and tall models, and they're just like killing the game. Uh, but they're trying to bring more advocacy to the fashion world at Fashion Week. And so we did a fashion mob or a flash mob where we actually, it almost looked like we were protesting. We did it actually in front of one of the largest venues that was doing the shows, just to show like our let the people know that we were here. I got to do a uh a photo shoot, and that was like my first like professional like modeling photo shoot. It was a lot. It was actually a lot of work. But yeah, we did it for Michael Kors and Johnny Big. And that was a lot of fun. And we paid homage to Andre Leon Talley.
Yeah, our friend Ifasina, who is Get Embodied on Instagram, is doing a series on fat black icons and did a really, just did a really beautiful workshop also
Wow.
about Andre Leon. So like folks, if y'all don't know, there's also a documentary on I think it's on HBO Max, it might be on Hulu, but there's also a documentary about that fashion icon. Um, do you are we gonna see like a Jeff Jenkins fashion line coming soon? Because you
Yeah,
seem
know
very
what?
fashionable
That was
outside of
my
Fashion Week.
Oh yeah, outside. I just had a conversation. It's in the works. It definitely is in the works. We're figuring this stuff out now. It's interesting. It's very biased. The manufacturing space. When it comes down to making clothes, or them telling us that, oh, it's going to be really expensive to make sizes, custom size, not custom sizes, but just sizes for fat people. And I was like, how? You're not even adding much inches, you know? So uh, we've been able to figure that out and even found companies that will be able to help assist, because I would like to have more clothing for traveling and like the outdoor space,
Mhm.
and
And
possibly wetsuits.
that was just gonna ask about like specific kinds of clothing that people need for some of the adventures you do. And we had a question in the chat about getting a custom wetsuit.
Ooh.
Um, did you have to get a custom one made for the show?
So I did for the show for one of the wetsuits I wore, but then I have my own wetsuit that I just bought on Amazon.
So that's
'Cause I-
so if folks, if you're here and you have other suggestions about things like that, they're like bike pants with with the pads for the bike
yeah,
seat for long distance bikers, or like any of that kind of stuff. We're happy to share things that we can crowdsource here. So if you're here and you have any suggestions, Jessica says, my kingdom for better and more plus size activewear, hiking clothes, snow clothes, rain clothes, wetsuits, all of that, right? All of that is what there's a demand for it that
yeah,
manufacturers just don't think there's a demand for it.
yeah.
And maybe that's one of the things that your show is showing people. Um, do you have any thoughts, Jeff, for folks who want to have the spirit of adventure that you have, but may have limitations you don't have in doing those kinds of adventures? People who are disabled, people who don't have the economic resources now or yet or in this moment. Like, are there things that you can offer people in terms of what they can do from home or close to home, or things they can do virtually if they have that same sort of wanderlust you have, but there is an actual practical never for them? Or at least a not now for them. Do you have any tips for those folks?
Um. Well, I don't. Once again, you said there. I don't know if there's a never. I keep running into folks that you would just be like, there's no way, and they make it happen. But I'm not being minimizing any of that experience. What I am going to say is that one, I would say to people like everything's figure outable in some kind of way, and you might not have the resources yet. But keep that in mind, because I know that a lot of times when people think something is finite, they automatically just like won't even try to do it. They won't even look into it more, you know? So keeping that mindset of like, you know what? I might not be able to do it yet, but I'm going to be able to do it one day, right? Um, I always love telling people that. But there's so many like state parks in all of these states that you could go to, or there's national parks in some people's states. Like, go to those. Like, some of those national parks. I was just at a state park today called McKinney Falls. Like, people rarely talk about it here, but it's here and it's been here. It's a beautiful state park. There's trees, there's nature, very light hiking. Like, literally is one of the easiest trails you can do. Uh, and so yeah, like, I just tell people to do the research, find what is it, all trails. And you can find like trails that's within your city or state that you can go do that, and they tell you like the moderation on it, like how far you can go, how easy the difficulty is for uh what's the word for it, for accommodations.
Mhm.
Like to be able to have the accommodations to like do wheelchair users, like to be able to have those kind of accommodations. There's all trails for that as well. Following me can give you that inspiration as well. But it's one of those things of like just figuring out what you want to do and plan ahead too. So if you don't have the finances today, you can save $10 every month, and then you'll have the money you need in the next year or so, like to do an activity.
Mhm.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think so, and I thank you for mentioning accessibility at
Accessibility, that was the
some of
word I was
the
looking for.
accommodations at some of the national parks, especially regional parks. Other public spaces are thinking about this more than they ever have before about how to make those spaces accessible. And if they're not accessible yet, Allies, that's another place where you can get in on supporting um supporting folks who need accessibility for disability or for size, right? Like you can be the advocates for that as well. Are there particular places that you think are especially friendly in terms of the infrastructure that they have for disabled folks, for fat folks, for Black and brown folks? Like, as somebody who's out 45 countries in to conquering the world, are there places that you think are the best places to start for somebody who needs more accessibility, more accommodation, whatever?
New York City. I'm joking. Like this is one of the
I was about to
it's
say,
one of the
you had a
least.
different New York than I had. If you think that, it is, yeah. Well, we're working on New York. We're going to keep
Yeah,
on
yeah,
working
we are.
on
And they're
New York.
getting better. I'm loving that part. I've been seeing that a lot from a lot of my friends' accounts. You know, it's really tough, and some of it is subjective. Like, there's times where I'm not thinking about ADA because I'm just thinking about myself and just like my size. But like South Africa definitely is one. And that's on both ends of it. Uh, Japan actually has a lot of cool stuff there that I was shocked that was like there. Um, there's a lot of accessible stuff. China as well. Um, man, it's tough. It's tough. Like to be able to hit on a lot of things is really tough. It's really hard to even make that list. A lot of people have tried to make those lists, and some of it is just very like focused on one thing, and so it's a really tough list to make.
To be comprehensively accommodating for all
Yeah.
the different things. It
Uh-huh.
does narrow the scope for lodging, for
Yeah.
transportation, all those things. But we just keep working on it, and our, colleagues all over the world are working on it. Have you had the chance when you are traveling the world to interact with other advocates for plus size people on during your travels?
I have a couple of times back in the day. Like I met up with Annette when I was out. We were in London or somewhere. I forgot where we were at. Uh, Another person in Portugal and stuff like that, but not really, not really. Like I've been able to. Oh yeah. Still, a lot of people in London. A lot of folks in London actually. That's it though.
This year, the International Weight Stigma Conference will also be in London. So I think that'll be a really good gathering of folks who are advocates in lots of different kinds of ways. And there's some really great, activism happening, especially in South America, but in all places all over the world, but especially Argentina and Brazil, just doing some really interesting things. Activists there around size stuff. So if your journeys take you there, you have a chance to network with those folks, don't
Love it.
miss it, because it's we're not we sometimes think as US activists that the only fat activism exists in the US, and that is not
Doesn't-
so, right?
It definitely doesn't.
What's on your list that you haven't been to yet that you're really hoping to get to soon?
Antarctica. I thought I was going like a couple of weeks ago, and that didn't happen. So that's still on my list. Australia's on my list. I might be going there in June, so I'm looking forward to that. Uh, yeah, those are and South Italy. Like I got to get to the Amalfi Coast. I need to be there. Like I need to have a coffee and look at the sights. You know, jump in that pool or jump into that little bay area that they have there.
What a lot of times we think as fat people that we are supposed to not eat publicly because it's, people will be judging us or people will be thinking about our bodies in relation to food. Um, but tell me what your best eating experience has been during your travels.
Horrible question. I've had a lot.
Okay,
I've had a lot.
just say some
Oh man,
favorites.
guys. When I tell you, like that's been one of the coolest perks of like doing my job is that there's a lot of times I can go into a restaurant and order everything on the menu, literally
Mhm,
everything on the menu, and they will bring it out to me if I wanted it.
mhm.
Uh, I don't know, like like South Africa, I did have a lot of great food there. In Rwanda, one of my favorite moments was actually in the community center that we was at. Like I'm so vivid, so like it's just there. But it was lunchtime with the kids in this like school that we were working through. And it was yams, like the white yams that like taste like potatoes almost. Uh like regular potatoes, beans, and there was like some like green, like almost like collard green. And when I tell you that was like one of the best meals I ever had in my life. And I think about that meal all the time. It's one of my favorite things. And then I love Korean barbecue. I can eat Korean barbecue any day of the week. And I remember the first time I ever had Korean barbecue was actually in Japan. And I was like, oh, what is this? We cook our own meat at the table. I like the barbecue. And I was over to just flip it. And Korean people, I don't know, they have mastered marinating.
Yeah, most of us, if we say we like Korean barbecue, we're going to the local joint. When you say you like Korean barbecue, we might see you in Korea eating Korean barbecue, right? Which
Yeah.
is, which is just beautiful. Um, is there something coming up for you that's not travel related that you want to tell us about or give us a teaser about?
I mean, my whole life right now, especially in this season, like I'm literally in this place right now that it's just like straight like grind mode. Like we're on it. Like we gotta help the people. I was like, I know we did the show and we got more shows to come. So it's just like right now I'm in this place of I want to put out 100 videos in 100 days. And so we're like working through that now. Me and my team is like really getting on that. So it's really exciting. Uh, but I don't know. I will. The one thing I do, but it's still everything's travel related. Like it's my lifestyle. Like my travel stuff is lifestyle. And hopefully in the future, I will be able to learn Spanish. That's one thing that I've been really, really wanting to do is like learn another language.
Well, when you come to Arizona, then we can get you in some Spanish speaking neighborhoods in Arizona, in addition to your travel to all the Spanish speaking countries of the world, you know?
Yeah.
Um, folks, we have time for one more question from the audience if anybody wants to pop one in there. I'm just scanning to see what I've missed. I want to mention Marilyn pointed out the classic 80s rock song Never Say Never by Romeo Void. That the lead singer is it Deborah? I think it's Deborah. I'm not sure if it's Deborah or Deborah, but it's just an icon of 80s rock. And so if you've never heard that Never Say Never, Jeff, I'm gonna send you the YouTube link if you've never
Please
heard.
do.
But Marilyn just mentioned the sort of synchronicity of fat icons that are both using that phrase. And maybe it was meant to be for you. Folks are talking about favorite episodes of the show. Of course, people are very excited about what you had to say about having a fashion line coming and having that fashion line be focused on bigger folks. Folks are really excited about that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Which which country that you've visited has felt the friendliest so far?
You know, I would, man, Belize, I would say felt the friendliest. Like I'm telling you, they were over there like, buddy, I don't care if you're big or not, but we're gonna make this happen. Like they were just always on that. Like when I'm over here getting insecure, they over here like, nah, bro, whatever, let's go. And they were just so friendly, and it almost didn't feel like it wasn't like, hey, big man, I wasn't getting that. It was like, excuse me, sir. Like it was just always on that. So that to me, I think was just so beautiful about Belize. And so yeah, I felt like I wasn't getting stared at, nothing.
So with socially welcoming, what about the physicality of navigating Belize? How was that for you?
What you mean? Oh, just
Just
like,
like
yeah,
size wise, is it a tiny doorway place or is it a big doorway place? Like
you
all of
know,
those.
it man, so I was outside so much. It was it was enough to where I don't think like even thinking to myself now that I don't think I was thinking about it. And like
Mhm.
even some of the chairs and the stuff that I sat in were like real stable. And a lot of Americans have moved out there, so it's definitely have been a little bit more Americanized in a way.
Mm.
But no, like literally going on boats and going scuba diving, or not scuba diving, but snorkeling. Like I wasn't even thinking about it at all for the
So
most.
I'm gonna ask you um one more thing related to our community, and that is, how do you feel about the F word? Because I've heard you use it sometimes during this session, but I usually hear you say chubby or big guy. How do you feel
Plus
about the word
size.
fat and about how putting it on yourself?
You know, I don't mind it at all. Like even to me, it's just like the verbiage. It's the branding of it. Like if we're saying that this is it, like then we'll just say that this is what it is, you know. I do get a lot of I wouldn't say like people that say they're like good intentions and like, oh, don't use that word, blah, 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 like kind of things. And that sometimes like throws me off from like what it is that I am trying to say because they're like
Mhm.
so caught up on that like, and I use it interchangeably only because that's the verbiage that I normally say like all the time. Like it's a part of my brand to use. I remember the first time just using plus size and I was like, you know what? This is the most acceptable one in my head to where people, if I mention this, they understand it, you know?
Mhm.
And so even people within the community that I've said fat, they were like, why did you say fat? You know? So it's been that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely complex. I mean, like I said, we've been around for 55 years now as an organization and always using that word. But we've had a couple points in our history where people have pushed about, like, well, would you reach more people if you used a different word? And what does it mean to try to reclaim this word versus, using some of the other terminology that's out there. But thank you for leaning into it with us, because in our space we really do want to put forward the idea that the more we say it in neutral ways, in positive ways, in celebratory ways, the easier it is to hear it that way.
Yeah.
um, out in the world. So thank you for leaning into that with us.
Thank you.
uh,
And I did it today too. I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. It's
yeah. It feels good, right? It feels
it
really good to
does.
get in a space where everybody is using it with good intention.
Yes.
Um, and so it's been such a blessing to have you here with us, Jeff. Tell people where they can find you if they want to learn more about your work, your projects. Where are you?
Yeah, you can follow me on social media, all of my social media platforms at Chubby Diaries, and you can watch my show Never Say Never with Jeff Jenkins on Disney Plus and Hulu.
When is the show coming back? When is season two start?
We're finding out. We're waiting. We're waiting to find out.
Okay, we're ready.
Keep
If you
fingers
are a
crossed.
person who does not have Hulu or Disney Plus, National Geographic does have some of the full episodes of the show on their
On
YouTube
YouTube.
channel. So
Yes.
you can watch them there now. Please go check them out. And of course, this episode of the NAAFA Webinar Series will be coming to YouTube after it goes through our editor's hands. And I encourage those of you who are here with us live to share it with other folks. Our next episode this weekend features Jessica Wilson and some of the contributors to her very, very wonderful book, It Has Always Been Ours, which is all about retelling the stories of Black women's bodies. So please join us this weekend for that next episode, and check out some of the past episodes. We've had so many fantastic guests on the NAAFA Webinar Series, you can always find those episodes on our YouTube channel at NAAFA Official, and follow us on your favorite social. We don't have as much on socials as Jeff has, but we're working on it. So follow us at NAAFA Official, NAAFA Official, on your favorite social media channels. Thanks everyone for your great energy during this session. Thank you, Selena and
David.
thank you, David. Thank you, Selena and David, for being our interpreters today from Pro Bono ASL. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Jeff.
Y'all, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for y'all support. And thank you, Tigress, for having me on today. This is beautiful.